Thank you. So I'm the Integrated Education and Training Coordinator. We provide a wide array of services to adult learners, such as ESL instruction, GED preparation, adult basic education for literacy improvement, and of course, IET programming to assist individuals seeking career training, but who are in need of additional support. Go ahead and move to the next slide. Thank you. So as a program, we wanted to help ESL students at all levels transition to career pathways that lead to high wage employment. We started looking for options to bridge the gap between our traditional ESL classes and career training programs. And I heard Tad actually mentioned, Voxy is a really good bridge tool. It really is. That's when we discovered Voxy Engine. It's filled that gap perfectly for us. So last year, we developed a four-step program to help ESL students enter career training programs. The first step is for them to attend their traditional ESL classes. These can be online courses. Last year, everything was online. This year, we're moving back in person, but we're also keeping the virtual element because we found that we were actually able to reach a whole other group of people that weren't able to come to classes before because of childcare and transportation issues. So we actually host several virtual information sessions to let students know about Voxy, first off. And then that there is free career training that is available to them. So students who enroll in Voxy need to score at the high intermediate level on their last skills assessment in order to move on to the next phase. So if they're coming in earlier, they might stay in Voxy and their ESL class for a while. So we've had some success with students coming in at an intermediate level, but for the most part, higher intermediate is really what's necessary to move forward to the third step. So the second step would be for students to continue in their twice weekly classes, but adding Voxy for 2 hours a week. We also host a class every other week with an ESL teacher who hosts essentially a Voxy lesson. So she'll pull an article or an activity from Voxy, and the class will do it together. So if there are any issues that students are having navigating, or if they have questions, it also keeps them motivated because they're really working on it together. So students are choosing the content area that most closely aligns with their chosen career pathway. So we're encouraging our folks to pick a particular industry. So our industry boot camps that's listed in the third step are information technology, healthcare, and logistics. So that is what we're really focusing on. If students don't want to continue on to the third step and they just want to use Voxy, they obviously can use whatever is available to them. But for people that are wanting to do this four-step process, we're encouraging them to stick with the contextualized language lessons so that they're ready for that next step. So once students have scored high intermediate on their last skills assessment, they're invited to enroll in one of our industry boot camps. These last 8 to 9 weeks. And then after completion of that boot camp, students with our help enroll at our community college to complete a workforce development training program. And then those programs last 2 to 4 months. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So these just kind of give you a breakdown of what that career training process looks like. So first, we're in ESL classes, we're attending regularly, we're committed. The second step would be that we're adding Voxy on here. And then the third step is that we have this option for these career training boot camps. The first one is healthcare. That is largely our most popular boot camp. Students that enroll in this class are eligible to participate in certified medical administrative assistant training, clinical medical assistant, pharmacy technician, phlebotomy technician, and CNA. In that healthcare boot camp, we consider it an introduction to healthcare. So they're learning the language, they're doing medical terminology, they're learning ratios and proportions, unit conversions, and all those kinds of things that they need in their actual training class. So right now we are offering all of these classes online. Last year we had to, and it really worked well, again, like our ESL classes. So we're going to continue offering that. This summer we offered a hybrid version. So we had 3 days a week that were through Zoom, using Zoom and Canvas, and 1 day a week they actually came to class. And we were doing soft skills instruction and those kinds of activities. We had employers come to class. We did some financial literacy in class, things like that. So our ESL learners in this class are supported by an additional ESL tutor. So sometimes our instructors have been ESL teachers in the past. If that's the situation, I don't usually bring in another tutor, but if they don't have the experience, then I'll bring in an extra support person to make sure that the ESL students are feeling supported and they're having their needs met. We have career coaching. It's contextualized reading and math instruction. We do digital literacy instruction. They create a digital career project that helps map out their career pathway. So they research their training that they're going to do at the community college, and then they research what jobs are available. They work on a resume, and then they actually present this project to the class at the end. So it's there's reading, writing, listening, speaking. It's the whole shebang in that context of healthcare. So information technology and logistics have a lot of those same elements. Information technology, during the boot camp, we're actually completing the CompTIA Fundamentals Plus course using Cert Master Learn. So we do have an ESL tutor definitely in that class. Vocabulary is a really important part of what we're doing in that class. That one we take a little bit longer with 9 weeks. So the contextualization is mostly with reading instruction because there isn't any math in that curriculum. And once they pass that course at the community college, they move on to CompTIA A+. And then in logistics, we find that in order to do the certified logistics technician training at the community college, people need to be operating at the 10th grade math level. So we do focus on quite a bit of math in that course. A lot of our folks haven't been in school in that kind of a setting in a while. So this is training ground for the material. It's training ground for learning how to study, remembering how to study, test taking strategies, how to engage in online classes, because that's a new element for a lot of them. And all of these classes right now are online still at the community college. So they're learning all of those skills, all of the etiquette that they need to be successful in those classes. They also learn how to self-advocate and reach out to people. They have a network that they can reach out to if they're having any trouble. So final thoughts, our students are encouraged to use Voxy throughout the boot camp and the training. We provide access to ESL tutors during both phases. So over the summer, we had a couple of students that were in their healthcare training classes. One was in CMAA, one was in pharmacy tech. So we had them meet with an ESL tutor that just helped them break down with vocabulary. That was, so I got her, the tutor a copy of the textbook for both courses, so she could take a look at what the students were being expected to know. And so she's not teaching the class, but she's helping facilitate that language. So far, we've had 3 ESL students fully complete the 4-step program, going from ESL classes all the way to completing their training program at the community college. So it's still a small pilot, but we have had definitely success with it. We now have 11 students that are enrolled in some phase of like the training boot camp and getting ready or have recently started their training at the community college. So little by little, we plan to keep going forward. I think this year, since we're still kind of learning how to best facilitate this, we're still planning to keep our groups small so that we can fully support them and make sure that we have plenty of ESL tutors that can work with them. And Voxy has been amazing. The students are really excited about using it. We don't have any trouble. We have weekly goals, you know, for students to do. And before they get to the boot camp, I think the use is a lot higher. Once they actually get into training material, we see that coming down a little bit, but they're engaging with, you know, the contextualized instruction quite a bit in class. So that's what we're doing over in prep.
Thanks a lot, Danielle. It's really interesting that you were able to find an online platform that's so neatly aligned within that whole spectrum.
Perfect.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if you
Absolutely.
helped write some of those courses over. I'm just joking, but that's really,
It's so perfect.
it's really cool. So there are some questions for you in the chat, and I can read them. And then if those of you who asks the question want to follow up, go ahead and unmute. So Jamie asked if you can say a little bit about how you developed a relationship with the community colleges to support that integrated, that integration and that continuation.
So we've had a really good relationship with our community college for a long time. I think I want to say 2014 or 2015, we started working with them on a SNAP grant. So it was like one of our in Virginia, we call it Plugged in Virginia. That's the model, that's the IET model that we use. So the SNAP grant was a state initiative, for us to partner together and offer a pharmacy tech class, and adult ed partnered with our community college to put this class together. So it's just been very slowly. We've gotten different grant projects. A couple of years ago, we got one that was called Credit for Prior Learning, and it was focused on trades and HVAC and CNA. But if you haven't developed that relationship with a community college, just get in touch with whoever the workforce development director is, because adult ed is able to fill such a need. There are a lot of people that just aren't quite ready to take the plunge by themselves, and they just need the support that adult educators can bring to the table. And we find that our community college partner really appreciates that's what we're able to bring. And we recruit and find our own students too, to bring them into their system. So that helps their numbers as well. So
that's great. Thanks.
That's helpful.
And sure. Jennifer Dazzle asks if you can say a little bit more about ESL students going through the healthcare, about, through these processes in 8 or 9 weeks. I mean, how is that working out? I guess maybe Jennifer, if you want to unmute, and if you need clarification, Danielle, we can encourage her to unmute or go ahead and answer.
Okay, so our very first group of students that started out, we allowed students to come in that were a little on the low side. We knew we wanted high intermediate, so that they were basically pretty functional. They could understand what the teacher was saying well, or reasonably well, as long as they were speaking slowly and enunciating. But we had a few that were extremely eager. So we spoke to the students beforehand, and they were on the lower side of intermediate, and just let them know that we are just going to try this. We're going to try the boot camp. And if you start it and you feel like you're drowning and you just can't keep up, even with our ESL tutor that's in there, that's okay. That's okay. So you can go back to ESL class, and then the next time around, we can try it again. And we had a couple students that actually really didn't want to quit, but felt, or postpone, it's really better term. They really didn't want to postpone doing the course. So we actually created a separate pre-healthcare boot camp that was slower, and it took a lot of the elements, the main, like digital literacy and those kinds of elements, the vocabulary, and we just took it much slower. We didn't give any homework other than working through Boxy, and they really appreciated that, so they could still be a part of it and still be making progress, but it wasn't quite as intense. So, but right. Otherwise, if they were high intermediate, they're some of our best students.
Cool.
Most motivated.
I'm struck by how flexible your programming options are, and how you were able to just add this pre-boot camp level.
So we as a program, we have just that philosophy. my program manager has a saying, and it just seems to follow us everywhere we go. We build the plane while we fly it. So when we try something new, we're constantly trying to be flexible and nimble and able to make adjustments so that we're meeting the needs of our students. Just be fun. You guys know, we know 2 students come to us with exactly the same, with the same needs and the same abilities and this, so we just leverage the staff that we have. We've got excellent staff, and they're often willing to try all kinds of stuff. So, yeah.
That's great. And Philip asks if the courses fit with IEL civics.
Yes.
Can you want to say a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we I think last year got IELCE, so that was in part why we started looking for something to help us bridge the gap for our ESL students, to help them get to an IET class. So that was really the driving force, was that we got that grant. How can we, what tools are available for us to start meeting those, meeting that need?
Great. Couple more questions. Is there a construction worker or a restaurant? Actually, I think maybe Tad answered that in the chat. So yes,
I did,
we are offering, we're going to offer a hospitality. That's our next project in the spring. We're going to try a hospitality class.
Cool. Tad, did you want to add anything to that?
Oh, I was just going to say that we don't right now have a specific construction pathway, but we do have a lot of content that can be leveraged from the oil and gas course, manufacturing, general industry safety, and it's definitely in the works. And we do work with a construction company out in Arizona, and one of their challenges with their workers was not necessarily, I mean, most of their workers are Spanish speakers. What they said was, in order to advance them, they really needed to improve their reading and writing abilities, because that was what was required to step up to that next role. So it wasn't necessarily the technical, but it was more of those, basic skills that were needed to advance.
Great, thanks. So 2 more quick questions for you. Philip asked if you needed to hire additional tech support staff, digital navigators, counselors, or any people in those roles to provide career pathways offerings when you added this richness to your English language instruction.
So we are very fortunate to have some instructors that were already very tech savvy and excited about trying new things. So we are able to pair those instructors with our instructors maybe that are more hesitant to use these kinds of tools. But in particular, our instructor that kind of took the lead on Voxy and was doing the lessons, she was already really tech savvy, and we didn't need to hire an additional person to handle that. Okay. We do orientations. We did an orientation beforehand, before students really got into it, to help make sure that they were okay. And then meeting every other week with a staff member, I think, helped keep them, they always knew that there was someone that they could reach out to. Great.
How many hours a week is in the healthcare boot camp?
Healthcare boot camp is a 12-hour-a-week course. So they're meeting Monday through Thursday from 1 to 4.